Berlin, April 1945. The city was dying. In the heart of the bunker, beneath the ruined Reich Chancellery, a once loyal officer stood trembling before madness itself. "If we stay," he whispered, "we die for nothing." He had seen the unthinkable and carried a secret plan that could cost him his life. The walls shook with distant thunder, not from storms, but from artillery. Berlin was collapsing. Smoke hung heavy in the air, blending with the metallic sting of dust and blood. Deep underground, in the dimly lit bunker, the world's final nightmare was unfolding. Major Karl Brenner, a decorated German officer, stood in silence among trembling aides and hollow-eyed guards. Once proud, now haunted, he watched as the leader he once saluted ranted to invisible armies. The air smelled of damp concrete and despair. Maps were torn, orders meant nothing, and still the madness continued. Karl's uniform was immaculate, yet his soul was not. Behind his calm blue eyes burned a quiet rebellion. For months he had seen soldiers, boys, sent into fire with no weapons, only faith in a voice that had long since gone insane. He had buried too many of them. His best friend, Otto, a medic who believed the war could still be humane. His younger brother, executed for calling the conflict a curse. Karl had learned then that silence was the last act of courage left. Now, as the walls cracked and the floor trembled, he realized this was the end, not just of a war, but of reason itself. The man at the center of the chaos paced wildly, shouting about phantom armies that would rescue Berlin. His voice echoed like iron on glass. Around him, generals stared blankly, some nodding to survive a few more hours, but Karl did not nod. His silence was his defiance. That night, when the lights dimmed and the corridors emptied, he moved through the bunker's maze with a small bundle wrapped in cloth, maps, ration tickets, and forged papers, the escape plan. He had helped design the tunnels beneath Berlin years earlier. Now he would use them not for power, but for mercy. As he passed the sleeping guards, he paused beside the door to the Führer's chamber. From inside came the low mutter of a man lost in delusion. Karl closed his eyes. The scent of burnt fuel, sweat, and fear filled his lungs. This, he thought, is what madness smells like. He turned away. Each step he took echoed like a heartbeat in the darkness. The deeper he went, the quieter it became, until the only sound was his own breath and the memory of screams above. At the far end of the tunnel he found her, Anna, a Red Cross nurse. She had tended to the wounded when hospitals were burning. She waited with a lantern, her face pale but unbroken. Together, they would lead a small group of survivors, a child, 2 soldiers, and a priest, through the tunnels to the outskirts. "Why risk your life?" Anna whispered. Karl looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Because honor means nothing if it ends in silence. Those words would follow her for years. They walked through filth and fire, through echoes of bombs collapsing above. Once they heard voices, soldiers searching, and hid beneath broken beams as dust rained over them. Karl clutched his pistol, not to kill, but to protect those who had lost everything. By dawn, the group reached the outskirts of the ruined city. The sky glowed red, the air filled with ash that looked almost like snow. Behind them, Berlin was burning, the empire of noise reduced to silence. Karl stood at the edge of a bridge and looked back. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, "History will call it an ending, but for those of us who lived, it was a beginning." He handed the forged papers to Anna, smiled faintly, and vanished into the morning fog, leaving behind a world that had destroyed itself. In the years that followed, Anna would tell his story, not of loyalty, but of quiet defiance. She would say, "He taught me that true courage is not in obeying orders, but in breaking them when they betray the soul." History remembers the loud, the speeches, the battles, the flags, but the world is rebuilt by the silent, the ones who walk away from madness, carrying hope in their hands. If this story moved you, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories that honor those who chose humanity over hate. The silent heroes history almost forgot.